Right, welcome everyone to today's explainer for Module 1. We are going to establish the absolute foundations of good manufacturing practice, or GMP, batch records, and of course, electronic batch records, which you'll hear referred to as EBRs. Now, if you've ever felt totally bogged down by the sheer volume of regulatory jargon around manufacturing records, well, you are definitely in the right place. My goal today is to unravel the complexities of all this. We're going to break down exactly what the regulators expect from us, why these records matter so much in the real world, and how technology is fundamentally shifting the landscape. So let's jump straight in.
Okay, quick look at our roadmap today. We'll be compartmentalizing the US and EU regulations so we don't get lost in the acronyms. We're covering the batch record's purpose, US predicate rules, Part 11 applicability, EU Chapter 4 and Annex 11, the paper to EBR spectrum, and wrapping up with the benefits and risks.
Section 1. The batch record's purpose. We'll start by stripping away the tech and asking why we actually keep these things.
So the absolutely crucial point here is that a batch record isn't just some administrative form we fill out to keep auditors happy. It is the definitive, complete, and traceable history of a single batch. It meticulously reconstructs who did what, when they did it, with which materials, and on what equipment. Ultimately, this document has to allow an independent reviewer to follow that batch's entire journey, without the operator even being in the room to explain it. It is the absolute bedrock evidence supporting the quality unit's decision to release that product to the public.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real-world cost of getting it wrong. Take a look at the fictional North Star Biologics case study. Their weak paper trails led to immediate, disastrous consequences. A missing equipment status? That triggered a massive, time-consuming investigation. Shared terminal entries meant that when things went sideways, accountability was completely unclear because nobody knew exactly who pressed the button. And illegible corrections meant the team wasted weeks trying to reconstruct the history of just one batch, severely delaying its release. Every single failure maps directly back to a fundamental purpose the record simply didn't serve.
Moving on to Section 2, U.S. Predicate Rules. Let's see what the FDA actually demands under 21 CFR 210 and 211.
It is so essential to distinguish between the master record and the batch record, as outlined in Parts 211.186 and 188. Think of the master record as your approved recipe. It is the plan containing the exact formulation, the procedures, and the specifications. The batch record, on the flip side, is the executed history. It is the undeniable evidence of what actually took place on the factory floor. Every batch record is essentially just a blank reproduction of that master recipe, but filled in with the reality of the day's production.
Building that into the release process under 211.192, we see that before a batch ever leaves the facility, the quality unit must personally review the production and control record. Any discrepancies must be fully resolved. But here is the vital takeaway, and please don't miss this. Even if you have the smartest, most highly automated electronic system in the world, the quality unit's responsibility simply cannot be delegated to an algorithm. Automation is there to support your reviewers, absolutely not to replace human accountability.
Section 3, when Part 11 actually applies. Let's look at the electronic record rules.
Let's tackle what is probably the biggest myth in the industry right now. Always remember this predicate first rule. Part 11 never, ever creates the requirement to keep a batch record. It just doesn't. The obligation to keep the record comes entirely from the predicate rules, Parts 210 and 211. It's only when an organization actively chooses to digitize that required record that Part 11 controls suddenly kick in and apply to the electronic form. Part 11 governs the format, making sure it's as trustworthy as paper, but it doesn't invent the need for the record in the first place.
So the golden question you really have to ask yourself is this. Are you relying on that electronic data to make your GMP decisions? If you maintain electronic records and use them as your authoritative source to release a batch, well, you cannot ignore Part 11 controls. You can't gladly take the speed and convenience of an electronic system and then try to avoid the strict validation, audit trails, and access controls that absolutely must come with it.
And this highlights perfectly why simply printing a PDF of dynamic data often isn't enough to stay compliant. We have to draw a hard line between static and dynamic records. A static record is just a fixed image, like a paper printout or flat PDF. But dynamic records, like chromatography data, for example, are interactive. They contain incredibly rich audit trails and underlying metadata. If you try to force dynamic data into a static printout, you lose crucial meaning and evidence. In those scenarios, the electronic format itself is the only truly complete record.
Right, let's cross the Atlantic. Section 4, EU Chapter 4 and Annex 11 requirements.
Under EU GMP, the principles of good documentation are identical whether you're using paper or digital, but Annex 11 brings very specific expectations for computerized systems. First, validation has to be scaled based on risk. You must guarantee secure access, meaning individual authentication, definitely no shared logins. But perhaps most importantly, and this trips a lot of people up, hosting your system in the cloud does not transfer your GMP responsibility to the IT provider. You can outsource the infrastructure for sure, but you remain completely 100% accountable for compliance.
Please take careful note of this timeline because the regulatory landscape is shifting. As of today, you must comply with the 2011 version of Annex 11. Now yes, a revised draft was published in July 2025 alongside a brand new draft Annex 22 focusing on artificial intelligence. But remember, these are strictly in draft status. The final versions aren't expected until mid to late 2026, with implementation anticipated in early 2027. Keep an eye on the horizon, absolutely, but make sure your current systems meet the active 2011 standards right now.
Section 5. The paper to EBR spectrum. Let's see how these records are actually implemented today. There are exactly 8 distinct models on this spectrum. They range all the way from purely manual paper processes up to fully integrated, contemporaneous electronic batch records. Every single organization sits somewhere on this spectrum, and deciding to move from one model to the next is a massive organizational design choice.
Starting right at Model 1, paper. Now, a purely paper model is absolutely still legally compliant, and it's incredibly simple to maintain. It requires no complex system dependencies, and literally everyone knows how to use a pen. But as we saw with the North Star case study, it comes with heavy operational burdens. Legibility issues, manual transcription errors, missing signatures, these things can completely paralyze a batch release. Paper is entirely reliant on human diligence at the exact split second of execution.
And finally, Section 6. Weighing the benefits and risks of digitization.
It is all a bit of a balancing act, isn't it? Moving to an EBR gives you contemporaneous electronic entry, which is fantastic because it removes our reliance on human memory and those chaotic end-of-shift catch-ups. However, it introduces a new risk. Your operation becomes highly vulnerable to system downtime. If the system crashes, production stops cold. Similarly, an EBR enables a much faster exception-based review, drastically speeding up your batch release. But the risk there is complacency. If your quality unit starts blindly trusting the system and ignoring subtle exceptions, massive issues can slip through the cracks. The technology is literally only as good as the procedural controls backing it up.
I am going to leave you with this rather provocative thought, just to ensure we never lose sight of our fundamental purpose. A perfectly clean-looking record that hides unplanned events, deviations, or human errors is not a success story. It is a profound data integrity failure. The ultimate goal is truthful, accurate traceability, regardless of whatever technology we happen to be using. So ask yourself, and look critically at your own setup. Does your authoritative record, whether it's paper or electronic, tell the absolute, true story of your batch? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer on Module 1. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.